Okay, so I think Mehta sir is also here. Good morning, sir. And I think it's 10:05, so we can probably begin with the webinar, and hopefully participants will join in as the webinar progresses. Okay, so very good morning to all, and welcome to the 15th webinar in the Every Friday webinar series. My name is Architect Tushar Mandal, and I'm a teaching faculty at the Periyar School of Architecture, New Delhi. The Friday webinar series is a platform for young minds to express their ideas. And today's webinar will be discussing a circular built future in the Indian context, presented by architect Adhiraj Miglani. So before I think introducing today's speaker, I would like to introduce architect Premendra Raj Mehta, who is the mentor of the Periyar School of Architecture along with his partner. He is also the former president of the Council of Architecture. We also have with us some of the senior faculty and mentors. We have with us architect Kamal Raj, who is the head of our school. We have with us senior faculty, Mr. Architect Sanjeev Sengupta, and also architect Prakriti Mehta. Mehta sir, if you could, if I could just ask you to speak a few words and motivate us today.
Thank you, Tushar. I'm extremely pleased to welcome all the participants, in particular the speaker for the day, Architect Miglani. And I must say that this series of Friday seminar has received a very good response from the young architects and engineers. And also one or two of these, we had some scientists dealing with the issues connected with urban issues. And I think this 15th series, the 15th in the row, is a great encouragement to the institution to carry this forward week after week. And we have a fixed schedule every Friday with Tushar at 10 to 11. And I would encourage all of you and all your friends through you to participate in these, present their ideas, present your original thinking. And we at Periyar School would make an endeavor to have this carried forward, be at a governmental forum, be at institutional forum, or be at your level in case you wish to pursue this idea further. So whatever little facilitation we can do, we would do that. I would welcome you all to this, and maybe towards the end, we'll have more discussion on what we could do and what we intend to do in terms of carrying these forward, in terms of short-term programs converted over these ideas, developed over these ideas, so that your idea gets carried forward. Best wishes to all of you, and wish you all a very successful participation in this Friday series.
Thank you so much, sir. So today, now I will introduce our speaker for today's webinar, Architect Adhiraj Miglani. I request if he could just switch his camera on. So Adhiraj is the design lead architect of Drake Holding India Private Limited and a former project lead architect of Studio Lotus for 3 years. He is actively involved in various UN and non-UN outreach programs focusing on the idea of contextual sustainability and collaboration among the youth of the country and young entrepreneurs. He did his BArch from the Sushant School of Architecture. Today, he will be talking about achieving a circular built future. I request Adhiraj to now begin his presentation. And also a request to all the participants to keep themselves muted for the duration of the presentation. Once the presentation is over, we will have a question answer round where you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tushar. And thank you all for having me on this day. I'm highly honored and humbled to be presenting over here. I'll just share my screen. Yeah. As Tushar has already explained, the topic that I'll be presenting on is circular built future in the Indian context. It is something that I have been working on since quite some years, just right after my graduation. And I'll just get on with it. So the second quote is really dear to me, which is each age demands its own form. It is our mission to give a new world a new shape with the means of today, which basically means that as architects, designers and planners, we need to respond to whatever context is prevalent in that time period or situation. This slide basically represents a village. It has 250 red dots and one blue one. Is that little blue person an Einstein or a village idiot? No one knows. But anyway, she is different from the others. Then the town increases. It's a town of 1,000 people. Now there are 4 to 5 blue dots floating around. Again, no one knows, are these Einsteins or they are just thinking out of the box. Then this town increases gradually and it comes on to 25,000 people. There's a historic moment in this town. As you can see, there are 2 blue dots meeting. So something is happening. There is a talk between these 2 people. And now this town increases. It has become a town. It has become a city or a town of 100,000 people, where several colonies of blue people are being formed. Furthermore, you can see the red dots are being converted into the purple ones. It means that there is a sense of dialogue happening between 2 people. So this is what the cities are all about, I would say. It's about collaboration. It's about having a dialogue. It's about changing something. So this is what the cities are all about. But as we know, like for the first time in human history, over 50% of the population is living in cities. The number is only rising, and it is rising at an exponential pace, where the population is having many risks to the cities, and there is a lack of urban resilience at the moment. So any shock to the cities will lead to disruption of the global food chain, the energy supply, mobility, telecommunication.
Adhiraj, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but could you just put the presentation in full screen mode?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Just sorry, Tushar, there's something happening. I'm not able to see that.
It is visible to us, like on.
Okay. Is this
So once you
visible
put it
to
on
you?
full screen, you're saying that the full screen part is not visible. It's still visible in the window.
Okay, because what happening is my screen goes black. I don't know why.
When you put it on full screen.
Yeah.
So could you like just reshare your screen and then try that? Probably
Yeah,
that will solve the problem.
Just a second. Sorry for this.
You can put it on full screen and then share again.
Okay. It's fine.
Is it on full screen? I can still see it in the window itself.
Okay, is it fine now?
Yes.
Okay. Just okay. So as you can see, sorry. Yeah. So as you can see, this map, we can see that there is an exponential rise in the population, as I said before. So only 2% of the Earth's surface is occupied by cities, and 56% of the world population is already living in it. And this number is only rising. In a few years, we will see 75% of the population living in cities. So it's a huge burden on a small piece of land. And that is what we really want to counteract, because the cities are the primary promoters of the GDP in the whole world. And we need cities which are resilient and which will face the consequences in the future as well. So 75% of the world's CO2 emissions are produced by cities. That's a huge number, so to say. There's a growth in urban poor in the cities. Maybe it's time to craft sustainable housing solution for these guys. Then, as we can see, that some of the cities, there's 40 people per minute rising in the cities. So it's a huge, huge, huge number, I would say. And the thing is that in India, especially, 70% of the cities are still needs to be developed. So we really need investments to focus on this opportunity so that we can realize it to the fullest. Cities in the developing world are thriving. The two images that you are seeing, they are of Mumbai and Sao Paulo. So they are recording double-digit growth, and they are growing better and better as cities, but disintegrating rapidly and unnecessarily as environments. So I would say that this is basically the city environment is gradually boiling to the death in a state of euphoria, I would say. Then I pose this question to everyone: is city a ticking time bomb, or is city an opportunity? Can we sustain the city as a great environment to live, work, and play, and yet it can be an economic engine? How do we ensure that our cities grow sustainability and our buildings reduce their carbon footprint incrementally? Is building green the solution, or are there credible alternatives? Depends on what we want and how we reorder our priorities. We can all do these things, but we need to compartmentalize on what the situation is and what the situation demands. We are at a point of time where sustainable growth is not just an idea. We need a cohesive and urgent action. The solution to the complex issues our world faces today lie not in building capacity alone, but in reinforcing capacity. We need to streamline our existing physical, social, and economical infrastructural system so that they can perform with increased efficiency. There's a growing understanding amongst architects and urban planners of the latent potential of disused and underutilized buildings and urban spaces in our cities. It points to the general progression of the ideas from the circular economy. The circular economy is based on three principles: eliminate waste and pollution, circular products and materials, and regenerate nature. In our current economy, we take materials from the earth, make products from them, and eventually throw them as waste. The process is linear. In a circular economy, by contrast, we stop waste being produced in the first place itself. The first principle of the circular economy is to eliminate waste and pollution. Currently, our economy works in a take-make-waste system. We take raw materials from earth, we make products from them, and eventually throw them away as waste. Much of the waste ends up in landfills or incinerators and are lost. We take this linear take-make-waste system and make it circular. The second principle of the circular economy is to circulate products and materials at its highest value. This means keeping the materials in use, either as product or when that can no longer be used as components or raw materials. This way, nothing becomes waste and the intrinsic value of the products and materials are still retained. There are a number of ways the products and materials can be circulated. There are two fundamental cycles, which is the technical cycle and the biological cycle. And lastly, the third principle of the circular economy is to regenerate nature. By moving from take-make-waste linear economy to a circular economy, we support natural processes and leave more room to nature to thrive. Instead of continuously degrading nature, we build nature capital. We employ farming practices that allow nature to rebuild soil and increase biodiversity and return biological materials to the earth. The waste is a conception and is a human invention. It was not before. Taking the values from the circular economy and how can we put them in use towards building a circular future? The aim is to challenge and rethink the way we use and reuse resources in the building industry. I would say future canvas of the built environment industry is circular. Today, a building truly becomes a material graveyard by the end of its life. So the question is, why don't we consider consciously how to take building superstructure apart? Why don't we know how to place a value on all the resources that get lost in the process? With building a circular future, we want to challenge and rethink the way we use and reuse resources in the building industry towards ultimately eliminating the concept of waste. The goal is to inspire future buildings that are designed and constructed so that they can be dismantled without significant impairment and loss of resources. It is brought together through the principles of design for disassembly, material passports, and the circular economy. Nowadays, we see most buildings are demolished after 180 to 100 years of use, in some cases even sooner. This is done to pave the way for newer developments with construction materials and components being hardly ever recycled. If we try and understand the building life cycle being a closed loop, where the building itself and all its parts offer themselves to being traded in cycles, being recycled, refurbished, or reused, then there is a potential for new urban framework to emerge. So design for disassembly is a holistic design approach where the intention is to make any given product easy to disassemble into all its individual components. This allows the different components to fit into a closed material cycle where they can be reused, reassembled, and recycled into new products of a similar or higher quality. Because of the holistic nature of the philosophy, it can be applied to any type of product on any scale with any level of complexity. But how can we put all of these notions into our Indian context? India has been encouraging the basic principles of reduced consumption, recycling, and reuse of material. Our ancestors understood the environment very well and adopted the same in their lifestyle. The key to architectural sustainability is to work with rather than against nature, to be sensitive so that we don't damage the natural systems as they believe that nature knows the best. Utilizing India's engineering and craft system by conceptualizing the design which correspond to sustainability through the multiple lenses of cultural, social, and environmental impact is very important in India. Capitalizing on the designs that accepts and celebrates context, making locally relevant choices that help sustain our local economy and environment. As making goes mainstream, the search for authenticity accelerates and can weave through crafts that contribute in many ways and provide major employment in our country. Known for its rich heritage and history of craft, it also helps in empowering the local communities and strengthening the local economy. Craft is just a manifestation of physical realm of design using both theory and skills. And we have abundance of this skill in India. So the challenge now is to reconcile with these ancient methods with modern technological innovations. At the core is the search for such innovative contextual design solutions that create new perceptions of space. It's the sustainable design which takes a holistic view of the needs of the project. The architecture that is best suited for the Indian context is low-cost frugal model that borrows from the indigenous models of passive design. Today, architecture should be grounded on the principles of conscious design, an approach that celebrates local resources, cultural influences, a keen attention to detail, and an inclusive process. This should follow an iterative and incremental methodology of innovation rooted to the learning in history and local context. I would like to culminate all of the notions which I have talked about before into this example. So this is done by Studio Lotus. At that point of time, I was the project lead among others in this project. And this was a competition which was on the national scale, which was to design 2%, a visitor as well as a knowledge center in the Mehrangarh Fort. So it's rethinking the Mehrangarh Fort and museum precinct. The basic parameters that we had used before starting off this project was, firstly, it should be non-intrusive, meaning to be sensitive to the historical context and does not suggest interventions that are imposing. The fort shall always remain in the foreground, and the new inserts shall blend effortlessly in the immediate context. Second, it is to be sustainable, to adopt strategies that encourage social, economic, and environmental sustainability. Third was it should be adaptive in nature, which suggests the proposal shall not be static and shall adapt to accommodate changes that are brought about by dynamic factors like time, climate, and technology. It should be inclusive because there are many categories of peoples that it has to serve, ranging from domestic and international. It encourages the fort to productively engage with the city. And lastly, it should be relevant, meaning it aspires to be relevant to the potentials and limitations of the fort. The strategies areas should be flexible and open to change so as to be pertinent to the needs of the fort at any given time. So the design objects was to establish a framework which would be highly functional and responsive towards the existing context. Hence, the design objects focused on ease of construction at efficient costs, high degree of localization, flexibility or reconfiguration, and modularity. Meaning, could the buildings be altered, expanded, or contracted, even dismantled with the minimum effort or impact? And can they be used later after in time while disassembling and the materials be back into the circular building construction, which we were talking about before? The building, the proposal that we suggested was not a building, it was a kit of parts. It wasn't a building which we were designing, but it was a system. Designing a building as kit of parts allowed us to create a built structure, and if required in the future, it can be dismantled and reshaped and put together again as per the different programmatic needs. This allowed very minimized work on site, which means maximum production off site. There was no cement concrete, very hardly, and it was a dry construction with almost no water required, but very selective lime mortar for spreading. This engineering and craft system has been conceptualized, which correspond to sustainability through the multiple lenses of cultural, social, and environmental impact. The design that accepts and celebrates context, making locally relevant choices, which helps sustain the local economy of the environment. The lattice screen and the jali that you are seeing, this is a prototype at the moment. And we have conceptualized this contemporary pattern by seeing the jharokas and the screens of the traditional Rajasthani Haveli. This is very easy, as in it filters the light from the harsh sun and allows the air to pass and cool the spaces within. The local stone being used as a main building material, as you can see. So the expression that we were aiming for in this project comes down to the principles of regional, contemporary, and frugal. Regional meaning we use the local materials and skills. It adds value to regional building knowledge and skills and responds to key elements from the fort. It is a patron of local crafts and new art forms. It is contemporary, allowing for emerging programs to shape the building. It uses the current best practices for structure, engineering, and sustainability. It is a versatile building technology that allows for extremely highly flexible in routing of services through the building. And lastly, it is frugal, meaning it is minimal consumption of non-recyclable materials. almost entirely locally resourced and reconfigurable steel structural system. The next one I would like to talk about is the example that is a project that I am currently doing in Raipur. It is a modern take on the courtyard notion for a family residence. It is a 9,000 square feet house consisting of two timbered louvered linear blocks set inside a plotted development. It's a modern take of a residence, which is the notion of a closed up entity into an indoor-outdoor experience of the residence to its people. This is repeated across all areas of this integrated, not so integrated house. It gets magnified even more with the separation of the two blocks overlooking a network of green courts and reflective pools that weave the site into an inhabitable whole. The internal courtyard with building mass all around it and the pool creating a microclimate within the residence. As you can see in this image, we can see the courtyard in the center and these two different blocks on either side. This reflective pool in the middle and the greenery, it creates a microclimate for the environment of the residences, of the whole residence. And it is not a closed residence at all, as you can see. It's an indoor-outdoor experience that we are giving to the users. The family, dining, kitchen, and master bedroom are contained on the south block, while the north block contains the formal living family and the guest room. All bedrooms and interstitial terraces are contained in the upper level timbered louvered blocks. The reflective pool covered with floating lilies and a submerged Buddha statue almost feels like a meditative space. These are some of the renders of the house, as you can see. It is clearly visible how open this house is and how the notion of the courtyard, the traditional heritage courtyard, has been contemporized into a residence which gives an indoor-outdoor experience at every step of the way. The third example I would like to take is inspired from the indigenous methods of creating houses using mud. This is a contemporary take on that. So the layout of the functions, as you can see, has been arranged in a linear fashion along the north-south direction of the site. All the functions were placed one after the other with a barrier of toilet block connecting both the public and private connections in the middle. This formed two courtyards on either side, with one acting as a garden for outdoor parties and the other being a garden to grow fruit trees. So as you can see in this plan, the dark, thick black lines represents the rammed earth walls. So this is a farmhouse that the clients wanted, in which they wanted to have an inside-outside relationship with the external environment. The site encounters extreme heat because it's in Raipur. And to counteract that, the rammed earth walls are used as external barriers, in turn cooling the inside with its thermal mass. The inside-outside relationship is maintained by providing long double-glazed sliding window panels of 4 meters height, which can be moved to one side to have a seamless dichotomy of inside and outside. So the structure was perceived to be a metal pavilion with a grid of MS beams, holding a light exposed concrete roof on top. Surrounding the structure are the rammed earth walls with high thermal mass to protect from the sheer heat of the site. So some of the renders, as you can see. On the end note, I would like to say, we need more blue people to change our vision for the community, city, and world at large. Coming back from where we started, our discussion of the village, the blue and the orange people. It's a fundamental shift should be thought in the manner with which we look at development and redevelopment. A more sustainable and sensitive alternative approach should be imagined for our built future, which could potentially be a low-hanging fruit to the inflexibility of the conventional construction of the 21st century. We will continue to need more of these blue people to change our vision for the community, city, and the world at large. Hence, I would say the canvas of the built environment industry is circular by designing buildings and spaces that are relevant, responsive, and add meaning in the larger fabric through the smallest detail. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Adhiraj, for the talk. It was quite elaborate. Participants can now ask questions. You could also put your questions in the chat box if you want, or you could just unmute yourself and ask. I think I do have one burning question before we take questions from the participants, and I hope that Adhiraj, you would be able to answer it. So
Yeah.
My question to you would be that, for example, the three sort of examples that you've given, one is a kit of parts, one is in terms of a contemporary reimagination of an existing Indian system, which is the courtyard, which has traditionally always been used. And the third is, for example, using indigenous materials. But my question to you would be that, for example, these examples are more in terms of open spaces or in places where we have the opportunity to explore, right? But for example, in let's say an urban context where we barely have space to expand, or we barely have, like, the only option that we currently have is to go vertical, right? So what sort of a application of the indigenous methods do you see in this current scenario where our only option in urban scape is to go vertical?
So as I was telling you, why the circular economy and the circular building concept has emerged in built environment industry is there are already many underutilized buildings which are already there. We can see the ghost malls of Gurgaon. We can see so many housing which are being built, but no one is living over there. And this has been there for years. So how can we use those? The urban context already has those spaces. We just need to utilize them, refurbish them in a circular manner in which we are using contemporary materials, the built engineering, the proper today's methodologies are being used, in which we are recycling everything and putting it into the circular notion of the built environment industry, which is already existing in the urban context.
Okay, so thank you. If any participant wants to ask a question, then please go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Muskan, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Adhiraj, for the presentation. I think it was really insightful. What do you think would be the role of communities and people who are occupying these spaces which you showed through your three projects be when you're conversing about the circular economy? So what do you think their role would be?
Can you repeat your question, ma'am, in terms of what would be the role of whom?
Communities.
Communities.
When,
Absolutely.
when you're talking about or you're conversing about circular economies, what do you think about that as their role?
Absolutely. So as I said before in the starting of the presentation, where two blue people meet, there's a talk, there's a dialogue. The cities, we are just looking at the fundamental aspects, which are the economical, infrastructural aspects of a city, but not looking at the metaphysical aspects, which is the communication and the collaboration between the people forming communities. So communities, as such, they play a lot of important role. What is city? How does city become vibrant? The city becomes vibrant with its people only. We see festivals. Whenever there are festivals, you are seeing a lot of color allowed. Man is a man's greatest friend, I would say. And this sense of community is something that we should take ahead. Until unless we have a dialogue, until unless there is collaboration, we cannot right now in this 21st century tackle all the problems until and unless we talk with each other. So the sense as an architect, I feel we are, us ourselves are a community in which there is a collaboration with the structural designer. We are just the facilitators of the building. There is collaboration with so many consultants. And at the end of the day, we are forming that product. That byproduct is collaboration of a sense of community of the infrastructure world, which is our community. So until unless we all collaborate, we all come down and we have a cohesive decision to move forward, this thinking of ours cannot change. So this sense of community and collaboration should always be relevant and prevalent in all the time which is to come. So it is very important.
Thanks, Adhiraj.
Thank you, ma'am, for the question, and thank you, Adhiraj, for the wonderful answer. If any other participant wants to ask a question, then please go ahead and you can ask your question. Do we have a question?
Yeah, can I come in, Tushar?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, let me tell Adhiraj, I think it's a wonderful presentation, wonderful thought brought out and shared with the younger generation and also with the older generation, that whatever we have been doing, I think it is time to have a fresh look at it. My take on some of these issues is like this, that as you had said, the target for recycling has to be established. Now, this may involve science primarily, because whatever existing materials we have in the existing cities were 500 years or 600 years variety of material. I think that what you trigger is that we need to look at processes, scientific processes, and technological, I should say only the machinery part of it, but scientific processes to reuse the material. Of course, demolition comes even before that, that how do you do that, and during demolition, what kind of environmental issues you generate. But end target could be that can we reutilize whatever we demolish. CBRI has been working on it for years. They have been working. Gujarat earthquake was a great starting point on this because the waste generated at that time, the nation just didn't know, and even does not know even today as to what to do with such waste if it is generated at one stroke. Absolutely. But very little has been done. I can bring that before you all at CBRI. And so far, we have not come out with either a process or a recycled product which could be applied. So that's number one. Number two is future buildings. Now, while we occupy 2% of the land, let me say that 2% of building is also constructed every year. It's the addition, whatever we have, there is a 2% added in urban areas. Whatever would happen to urban areas, whether they would move from 50 to 60 or 60 to 70% of the total world's population, I do not know, but construction is definitely there, wherever it may be. It is in rural area, it is in urban area, everywhere it is there. So what kind of materials should we choose? Now, largely we are mineral based. Historically, in some part of our country, we were dependent on regeneration. We were using timber. So that is a regeneration, simply. But a time came when we thought that this using a regenerated product or agricultural product or a tree or a plant is something which is against the natural ecosystem or natural nature's law. I think this is what we have to rethink, that we need to have. You see, timber has a versatility and inherent values for reuse. I have been using timber for my projects, maybe which was cut maybe 200 years ago. So from a shipbuilding to the structural system or the trusses of a building to finally door chockhutts, and now furniture out of the same timber again and again we are using. And that is what I was discussing with Prakriti yesterday, that that is one material which has that potential of
you see, it never dies. You see, it is how you can keep on applying it and keep on using it. So it is time maybe we start thinking about products which are regenerated. In architecture, we move away from minerals, we move away from stone, we move away from sand, we move away from aggregate steel. And the only issue which bothered governments and people who govern is either an environmental issue or a fire issue with timber. So if we address these two, find in newer timbers which are commercial crops and which are fire resistant, I think our life will be simpler and the world would be better. So I think it's a very interesting talk and thought-provoking, reminding us of something which we all know, but not working on or not attending, and choosing simpler options which are glamorous, which are attractive, which gives you ready answer, rather than investing our mind and time on something which would make the world more sustainable, peaceful, and happier in terms of whatever we are doing. Because as soon as we start using minerals, we start first imbalance. You see, first act of imbalance is already there. And then we try to cover it up by laws. We say that if you do this, you have to do that. So those are counter actions which never compensates for the damage what we do. So I think we need to devote ourselves to agricultural research, along with the architectural research, along with the scientific research, all put together in one basket, and then try and see that can we have a material in next 10 years, let's say, which would take care of maybe, if not the entire problem, but at least 0.1% of the issue. So whether we could find a practical solution to this or not, I think that would be the should be our endeavor and target. So I'm extremely happy, Adhiraj, that you have brought out this issue, worth pursuing, worth carrying forward at institutional level, and worth collaborating with the scientific world, agricultural world, and that human habitation is not one-off issue or one single issue of architects alone. It's, if it is a sustainability, it is everybody's concern. And I think that is what we need to bring home in a very professional manner. And I look forward to much more from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramendra sir. On this note, I like just hearing you, I was reminded of this thing called, I was reading this comic, some Indian comic, in which there was this term of Sutradhas, basically meaning they were the thread bearers of our community, which hold the past, like whatever our past cultural influences have been. So they held the past together. And this was for to give to the future generations of what the past was. Because the thing is, as we are going into this technological world, we should just rethink consciously about what we are doing. The thing is that it's not like we should live in the past. We should obviously go for the future, but we should take the materials and the things that the past has given us and utilize them in a way in which it is sustainable to the environment. Because as Indians, India has always been a community in which the 5 elements of the earth, which the Vedas preach us, the fire, water, element, earth, they are all there with us. And how we can take care of that is upon us. And how we can think of them as conscious elements and move forward. Because the thing is, while we are constructing all of these things, are we thinking about the debris which is left behind? What will be the debris after the things have been constructed? Can we move the idea? Can we just have an idea in which we are moving from permanence to impermanence? So these are some of the questions that I have been asking the community and my fellow architects. And hopefully we will get the answer someday. And I think so we are moving to that answer as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehta sir, and thank you, Adhiraj. So if I think we can take a few more questions if there are any. If somebody wants to ask a question, then please go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask the question. Uh, or if somebody just wants to add to the discussion or reiterate a point, then please feel free to do so. Okay, so I think there don't seem to be any more questions. So I would probably then let's bring the webinar to a close. I would like to thank Adhiraj for the wonderful presentation, and I would also like to thank all our senior faculty, Mehta sir, Prakriti ma'am, Sanjeev sir, Kamal sir, who are here, and uh, I wish all of you a very wonderful day. Before closing, I would like to inform everybody about the Every Friday webinar series that is being organized by the Periyar School of Architecture. The webinars are a platform for young professionals to express their ideas and are aimed at students and young architects. So if there is any, especially to our senior faculties, if there are any young architects or professionals that you think would be interested in this sort of webinar or who have certain unique ideas that need to be propagated, then please ask them to contact me and I can set up a webinar for them as well. With this, I would like to end today's, bring a close to today's webinar. I once again thank Adhiraj and all our participants, and please have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you all.